Hey, this is Doris Burke from ESPN. I've been lucky enough to travel the entire United States covering men's and women's college basketball and the NBA. But if you're looking for coverage of high school sports, there's no better place than Cap Sports with Carl Pratt.
Hi there, everybody, and welcome once again to the Video Sports Page. I'm your host and producer, Carl Pratt. Tonight, I welcome you to a very special edition number 1200. But more specifically, this is our 25th anniversary. We first went on the air April 4th, 1989. That was a Tuesday. My co-host was Paul Coffin. And you know what? That was a Tuesday, April 4th, 1989. Now it's April 3rd, 2014, as you see our show for the first time on a Thursday night. Well, you know by now we've been going around for years with our video camera, interviewing youth players, youth coaches, high school coaches. We've sprinkled in some professional athletes and broadcasters and so forth. We've had an awful lot of fun with it. We certainly hope you've enjoyed what we've brought home to the people. Well, we only have a half hour tonight, so we can't show you as much as we'd like to and look back to as much as we've taped. But certainly we have an opportunity to give you a sprinkling of some of my favorite efforts. People like Tom Brokaw will join us. I'll have an opportunity to show you an interview I had with Ken Coleman. I had one with Ned Martin, a former Red Sox announcer, and the next day, unfortunately, he passed away. But my show made it on Sports Final with Bob Lobel. Well, during this week's edition of our program, I'll give you a personal touch as well. I'm so proud to say that this spring, my son Connor is the senior captain for the Plymouth North baseball team. But I'm going to back up a piece of home videotape that I took with Connor when he was 3 and gave us the entire Red Sox starting lineup. A very special piece of videotape as I went through many, many things leading up to this week's program. You know, before we get into the meat of the program, you can imagine in 25 years, there's an awful lot of videotape hanging around. And as I show you some of these things from an area in my house where I keep a lot of videotape, we certainly have old tapes from Plymouth Hall of Fame celebrations, Super Bowls for Plymouth Carver High School, Plymouth North, Carver High School, and even Plymouth South this past fall. State tournament hockey championships for Duxbury, basketball championships for Duxbury. How about state championships for Sacred Heart in basketball? And state championships for Dwayne Follett in the Plymouth North baseball program. We covered those as well. We've talked to countless coaches over the years like Carl Frymouth, Emerson Coleman, Dennis Azevedo, John Hernowitz, Dick Arrieta, Mike Brennan. They're from Silver Lake. How about Rocky Gomes out in Carver? We went on the air with the Video Sports Page the same year Carver High School opened its doors. Kevin Farrell, who's now at Plymouth North as the wrestling coach, was the wrestling coach out in Carver, and they got off to a terrific start. They had a super softball program in Carver in the early years under the direction of Chuck Green. You got Roger King and Mark Loranger and Billy Burkhead and youth coaches like Roger Silver over in Kingston that really helped this Video Sports Page work over the years. And from the local press, you got people like Dave Walcott, who shares information week after week with us and certainly helps our program work. And one of his counterparts, Ryan Wood, has also helped us on the Video Sports Page. So you can see all these tapes that I got out here. There's so much to go through, too much to go through, but we certainly have, as they like to say, the proof is in the pudding. Well, let's begin this week's edition of our program because I'll bounce around a little bit here. Let's show you what we looked like April 4th, 1989, when we first went on the air with the very first edition of the Video Sports Page.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Video Sports Page. I'm your host, Carl Pratt, and joining me from time to time as a regular contributor to this program is Paul Coffin. Paul is, of course, the head basketball coach for the Plymouth Blue Eagles, has been for the past 6 or 7 years. We'll verify that as the program goes along. Paul also an assistant with the Plymouth football program. The Video Sports Page is something that will come your way each and every week, once a week, on a Tuesday evening. And this, folks, is your program. We're going to emphasize local sports, whether it be a team, an individual, an event, Just anything that you feel that's noteworthy in sports will pass your way. And we're going to cover the towns of Plymouth, Kingston, and Carver. And this, of course, being our initial show, we're going to talk a little bit about baseball tonight to get us underway. Paul, welcome to the program. You and I have talked about this for some time, and it's finally here. It's finally upon us, and I'm kind of excited to get into some living rooms that I haven't been into before.
Well, Carl, I think that our idea is going to be accepted very well. I think that we're going to do a lot for the communities of Plymouth, Carver, and Kingston, both at the high school level, the youth level, and even nationally at the professional level. What we do need is help from all the people out there. As the things you said before, team performances, individual performances, upcoming events, or even registration dates, we need to know that information. And later on, we'll be showing you the address that you can get a hold of either Carl or myself so we can get this information on.
We'll see what happens coming up this fall if Dwayne Follett decides, well, not in the fall, in the summer, to stay with that summer program, the American Legion team, or if he decides to pull the reins back just a bit and concentrate just on the JV program. One quick note from the Plymouth varsity team. John Seaver says he could start as many as 6 left-handers in the lineup. That could pose an interesting problem for any defensive team.
Well, first of all, in talking with Coach about this game, he said this season that he will have situations that there will be 6 left-handed batters in the lineup. Jeff Frymouth, Billy Fistori, John Bailey, Brett Strassel, Mike Monkowitz, and Wayne Cristani as a designated hitter. And I asked Coach what he thought about that. He said, first of all, him being a former pitcher, he thought it was more difficult in high school to pitch to left-handed batters. Secondly, the right field fence at Plymouth North High School, where they play their home games, is very close. So he thought that was a second advantage. He said, and thirdly, they're going to see a lot more right-hand pitching. So with those 3 advantages, he thinks that's going to be a big
Dick Silva. Dick, currently the assistant superintendent in the Plymouth school system. Dick, a product of this system himself, a graduate of Plymouth High School back in 1960, but more importantly, a 3-sport athlete. And Dick would know none other than anybody else. Dick, talk a little bit about athletics. How have they affected your life?
Well, Carl, I think probably the most important effect it's had on my life is the confidence that I had as an athlete has been carried over into the various roles I've had as a teacher and an administrator in 2 different school systems. I think that competition that I had was one in which I face every single day, I think. There's a constant amount of pressure that is in all kinds of jobs, whether it be the teaching or the administrative part. I think that is probably one of the biggest strengths that athletics has given me.
Now, you played 3 sports back in 1960. Your best success was on the baseball diamond. It allowed you to get an opportunity to try out at the professional level. There are so many people that get that opportunity, and the numbers are so few who do make it. What kind of lesson can be learned from maybe not making it to the pros?
Well, I think if I had any advice to give an athlete today, whether it be a little leaguer or a high school or college player, would be not to look just for that professional sports career, but to be prepared to settle for something less, because so few make it. And if one is successful in making that a career, there's still an end someday to the sports, and one has to go out into the world and work at another position. And I think that that would be the best advice I think I could give someone.
We talk about baseball and we look at the great success you did have, having the opportunity to play at Boston University. Dick was also very instrumental in some of the town teams that played for Plymouth, most recently the Plymouth A's, and even at the tender age of almost 40, you were still one of the leading players on the team and in the league. What's the key to that? Besides keeping yourself into shape, good top shape, isn't there a mental aspect to it?
Well, I think there definitely is a mental aspect. I think the reason I kept playing was I really enjoyed it. I had an awful lot of fun at it. It was difficult as I got older to stay in shape. It took a lot more time and energy in the off-season to stay in shape. But it was fun. It was fun playing with some of the younger kids.
Well, certainly one of the funniest characters out there and interesting characters is the late Sherm fella. Sherm was the public address announcer for the Boston Red Sox for many, many years, and we had an opportunity to catch up with him at Fenway Park.
How tricky is it, Sherm? Do the players come up to you and tell you how they want to be pronounced and how they want to be called over the public address system?
Well, I go to them when they have a name that's questionable as to pronunciation. I go to them and ask them, or else I go to the broadcasters who are upstairs in the press section. I asked them, like last night, instead it's L-I-N-D and it's pronounced leaned. And now you'd never pronounce L-I-N-D leaned, but if you ask them, then you get it right. But they're very proud about their heritage, and they want their names pronounced the way the family likes them pronounced.
And of course, we know of at least one player that doesn't want to have his number announced.
Oh, you're talking about Wade Boggs. Wade was a superstitious sort, and he went 0 for 3, 0 for 4, and finally one day I said, I'll try it. I won't announce his number, and then for the next 8 years I never announced it again. Never did. With Yastrzemski, I never announced his name, strangely. I just said number 8, and by the time I got to his name, the crowd would drown out my voice. So I just said 8.
Well, it's certainly nice when you do anything in life, when you have an opportunity to talk to somebody who you looked up to your entire life. And for me, it was Curt Goudy. When I was growing up, Curt Goudy did the Super Bowls, the college championships, the Rose Bowl. He did the World Series. He did every major sporting event. And when I had an opportunity to catch up with Curt Goudy in the late 80s, what a thrill it was for me. Here's a piece of that interview.
This week on the Video Sports page, a very special moment for yours truly. I have an opportunity to interview one of my idols. Growing up in the Plymouth area watching NBC Sports, you always heard the name Curt Goudy calling play-by-play for all the big events. And Curt, if I back up the clock, I used to listen to you and Aldi Rogatis with those old Oakland Raider games.
They were great. The American Football League in those days, that they had those big defensive games, 62-50, 48-47. That was exciting, and we watched it grow up. And when the Jets beat the Colts in Super Bowl III, that was one of my big thrills of my broadcasting career.
Well, let's talk about it. I never had the opportunity to enjoy you doing Red Sox baseball games, but I heard so much about it. You've had an opportunity to cover so many major sports. When you sit back and you're fishing, you're relaxing, what do you think about?
Well, I think how lucky I was. I started Cheyenne, Wyoming on a fluke doing a 6-man football game, a local high school game, on a soapbox in the middle of a vacant lot. And when I'd go out to do the Super Bowl or Rose Bowl, I could still see those 2 soapboxes sitting out in that vacant field. And I thought, Goudy, what a lucky guy you've been. And that's what I feel about it.
Well, I covered a Bill Russell night when they made a tribute to the former Celtic great for all those championships and what he meant to the Boston sports scene. Well, prior to spending some time with the celebration, I caught up with Tom Brokaw from NBC News.
Joining me this week on the Video Sports page, maybe to talk about sports, not world problems, Tom Brokaw. And Tom, special night here in Boston.
Yeah, Bill Russell is a unique individual. I, spent most of my life admiring him from afar. A few years ago, we became friends, and when his daughter Karen called and asked me to join them here tonight, I didn't hesitate. I said I'd be happy to be there.
I've seen different televised games and see you in the stands for Knicks games and things like that, but never at the Fleet Center. How special was that Boston franchise when you were growing up?
Well, I think that they were every young man's heroes, and the wonderful thing about those teams is that after they stopped playing ball, they never stopped achieving. You think about the achievements of Cousy and Heinsohn and Havlicek and Bill, obviously, and KC. These were really distinguished citizens as well as great athletes.
Let's get away from the sports as heroes. Your heroes, your parents. I read your book, and boy, that's something very special to you.
Yeah, it was. It's been a really gratifying experience. I wrote the book as a labor of love, and the response across the country has been well beyond my wildest expectations. And I think the likes of Bill Russell and his teammates are an extension of that generation.
Talk about when you get the opportunity to travel around, not just the country, but around the world, and you're so much in touch with reality.
Well, that's why part of the reason I love sports. It's a great escape for me. I see the excellence on the floor or on the field or in the arena, and I spent a lot of my life documenting the failures of men and women, and when I come to the Fleet Center or go to the Garden or go to any Olympic venue or to the Super Bowl, then I see people doing their best, and we forget our everyday worries. So that's one of the reasons I'm a big sports fan.
When Russell was popular and the Celtics were popular when he was having all his success, there was no cable, not that much exposure
No.
to the NBA. How did people know about it?
Well, you know, I grew up out in South Dakota, and we used to see it in the movie tone news, and you'd see the kind of black and white grainy television films, and, you know, I was a guard, and I tried to emulate Cousy. Didn't get very far. And when I saw Russell playing his game, I knew that any hopes that I had of playing basketball were going to come to a quick end.
Ever think about not being a television commentator but being a sports commentator?
Well, I did it in college. That's part of the way I earned my way through school. I loved doing it, but I knew that this is how I was going to spend my life, and it's been very rewarding. So I've been able to have both ends of my life, do the journalistic side and also to have my friends who are the sports heroes.
Appreciate your time.
Okay.
What's your most memorable moment of the
Well, the Plymouth North baseball team has begun defense of the Atlantic Coast League Championship. They had their very first game earlier this week as they opened up the season Wednesday at the brand new state-of-the-art surface on the campus of Plymouth North High School. And on a personal front, my son Connor is one of the senior captains for the Plymouth North program, and he made some history. He's the very first Plymouth North player to reach base with this brand new surface. It'll be a trivia question that'll stay in this family for many, many years. But Connor's interest in baseball began back when he was 3 years old. Let me share this piece of videotape with you.
Hi. How old are you?
3.
Okay. Who's your favorite team? All right. Who plays the outfield? Who else?
Pratt next to me.
And who's number 2?
And Buford.
Who's number 44?
Butch Kuski.
Who's number 45?
Pedro Martinez.
Who's number 33?
Jason Beltek.
Who plays first base?
Mike Taylor.
Who plays shortstop?
Noah Gibbon.
Huh?
Noma.
Look at the camera and tell them.
Noma Garcia Power.
All right, and who plays third base?
John Johnson.
And who plays second base?
Jose Offerman.
All right, and who else pitches besides Pedro? Tim
Wakefield.
and Brett.
Hagen.
And who's the manager? Who's the coach?
Butch.
No.
Jimmy.
Well, Curt Goudy, the former Red Sox announcer, was followed in the booth by the late Ken Coleman. And I had an opportunity to spend some time with Ken one night several years ago when he was inducted into the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Okay, as we continue with this week's edition of the Video Sports Page, I'm pleased to be joined by a legend in sports broadcasting, especially here with the Boston Red Sox. Ken Coleman, you've spent some time with us in the past, but tonight it's your night.
Well, thank you, Carl, and you're the busiest man in Plymouth, so you do a great job.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. Talk about tonight, though, a special night for you and many of your colleagues.
Well, I suppose that I know that the plan is in the past was to be interviewed, and I will be interviewed, and I'm sure they'll ask me what my biggest thrill is, and I can tell them truthfully that my biggest thrill is right here, right now, tonight, because growing up as I did in Dorchester and North Quincy, I never pictured that anything like this would ever happen. I was involved in playing ball all my life, and I was a fan of both the Red Sox and the Boston Braves, and so this would be my biggest thrill.
Talk about the impossible.
I know you're doing this is for your Thursday show, right?
Correct.
And but this will be special for me to get to renew acquaintances.
Well, just as he touched on it, it's special for me when Ken Coleman, who's broadcasted professional sports for so many years in Cleveland, in Cincinnati, with the Red Sox, living in Plymouth and aware that my show comes on Thursday is rewarding for me. And I know we've spent time in the past. Talk about Plymouth and what it has meant to you as in your retirement years.
Well, I really enjoy living in Plymouth very much. Of course, I live at White Cliffs, and I love golf. And they have a course that fits me. It's a par 62.
All right.
That takes about 25 strokes off my game, because I'm not a very good player, but of course we have the ocean in Plymouth, and we have, we just have all the things that I care about, and I enjoy it, and the people that I meet around town are just terrific. And I catch your show almost every week. You get around, and I think it's great that you're doing the things you are doing with the local high schools and so on. That's something that is very special and meaningful to a lot of people.
Well, we appreciate the kind words. It's a foundation. It's my town. It's where I grew up in, a product of the environment, so it makes it especially rewarding, and then to hear your kind words. Before I let you sneak away, how would Ken Coleman like to be remembered?
I'd rather just stick around if it's okay. Well.
Welcome back to Sports Final. Earlier this week, as we know, legendary Red Sox announcer Ned Martin passed away one day after attending the Ted Williams ceremonies at Fenway Park. We have what we believe was the last interview that Ned Martin did. It was with a South Shore cable television station, and we'd like to play a little bit of that for you.
Well, it certainly is a very special night to recognize number 9, Ted Williams, for the Boston Red Sox. I'm pleased to be joined by Ned Martin and talk about how this is a special night for you.
Oh, yeah, Carl. I was surprised. I didn't get the invitation really about a week ago tonight when Dick Brashani was getting this whole show together. And I guess it was his idea, and I appreciate being here. It was mainly because Carl Yastrzemski is going to be here. He came in here in 1961, the year I did. And we have kind of been joined at the hip ever since all those Yaz days and things like that. So he wanted to talk a little bit, but he didn't want to make a speech, so he just wanted to talk a little bit about his relationship with Ted Williams.
Over the years, you've become like an icon in that broadcast booth.
Well, thank you. I also have been fired 2 or 3 times, but I survived, so it was good. No, there could not have been a better place for me to be to do Major League Baseball, and I did it for 32 years, and don't even say arguably. I think it is the best baseball town in the country.
Let's talk about a night like this for Ted Williams. When you think about all the people you covered over the years and how special number 9 was.
Well, he was special because I saw him when I was a young guy with my dad in Philadelphia, where I was from, that area, and saw him play in Shibe Park in either 1940 or 41, his big year, when he was playing left field. We had seats right up in the high left field stands to get a look at. He hit a triple that night, and then I saw him again in Washington later on when I was working there, and he hit a home run at Old Griffith Stadium. But he was just to watch him at the plate and to know that this fellow knows what he's about, and nothing is going to bother him. The ball is just outside, and it's a ball. It's in here. He'll just lean back, and then he's ready. I mean, he was beautiful to watch.
Let's talk about when you look around this room and you see so many familiar faces, the type of memories that go through your mind.
Oh, Frank Malzone was here. He was the third baseman when I joined him, and along with Brooks Robinson, probably 2 of the best third basemen in either league. And a friend of mine, and he and his wife had the same anniversary date that we did. Same year, too, so I'm not going to tell you.
There you go. How about when you...
Well, a lot of guys, the guys that I worked with, Jerry Remy and Ken Coleman, and the writers that I knew later on, and it's just great always to see them back here.
Well, it's certainly good to see you. I grew up listening to Ned Martin, and it's a pleasure to spend some time with you.
Well, thank you, Carl, for having me.
We appreciate it. Ned Martin, former voice of the Boston Red Sox, joining us this week on the Video Sports Page.
Ned Martin, a totally unique and wonderful man, as you know, passed away at age 79 Tuesday of this past week. All right, with that last television interview of Ned Martin, let's go back here on Sports Final to Steve Burton. Steve?
All right, Bob, we'd like to thank Carl Pratt of Cap Sports for providing us with that interview of the late Ned Martin, who will definitely be missed. We have to take another short break. We'll be back to wrap things up in just a moment. Stay with us.
Well, that'll take care of this week's edition of the Video Sports Page, everybody. At the end of this month, we're going to have a very special edition. We're going to tape it from Cabbie Shack, and hopefully so many people that contributed to the Video Sports Page, whether they were a player or a coach or just a fan, will join us down at Cabbie Shack. So if you watch this program and you're familiar with the Video Sports Page, you have a personal invite to come to the Cabbie Shack April the 28th. It'll be a Monday night starting at 8 o'clock. We'll give you more details as we move along with our program. So rather than me sign off the normal way that I do, let me show you how I signed off with the very first edition of the Video Sports Page.
All right, our first one is history, and that'll just about do it. So for my partner, Paul Coffin, I've been your host, Carl Pratt. Health and wisdom to you, and we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.